We'll be doing some polling and some chats. So be ready to, oh, see, here's another person already. Be ready to comment. We love to have your participation. It's definitely not a one-sided conversation. So looking forward to seeing your conversation starters in the chat and answering our polls. Well, we will go ahead and get started. So today we have for you the wonderful Tashelle Green, and she's going to tell you all about STEM and having a successful career in STEM. So get your questions ready. Tashelle, it's over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm always excited to talk to students about, how to prepare and be successful for a career in STEM, and also to share my story and many others' stories. So as mentioned, my name is Tashelle Green. I am a STEM educator and an instructional coach. So my background is in chemistry, PhD in pharmacology, but I am trained also as an educator. So I am just delighted to be here and to share with you some of the knowledge that I have in this space. So I will go ahead and get started. Awesome. So here's the agenda. Really, I'll talk to you about STEM, essentially what is STEM, give a little bit of background information about STEM, and then go into STEM careers, and then give some tips for how you can prepare for STEM careers, share some resources, and then I'll open it for questions and share my insights essentially. So first up, I'd like to know who is in the room. So in the chat, if you can go ahead and just tell us a little bit about who you are, and the prompts are here. I know the team is going to go ahead and put up those questions as well.
So guys, tell us where you're from. Where are you calling from? Or calling, Zooming, Skyping, whatever. Where are you guys from? Myself and Tayo are both in Connecticut. So go ahead and type right into the chat where you're from. And in the meantime, I'm also going to put up a poll for you to say where you are in your educational journey. Jeffrey's also from Connecticut. Wonderful. All right, launching the poll. You should see that. Tell us where you are so far. Are we talking to high schoolers, middle schoolers, people in college? Looks like we have a combination. Excellent. High school and college, yep. And not everybody had participated in the poll just yet. Just want to give another couple seconds. And then in the chat, you can see both Jeffrey and Melody are from Connecticut. So welcome to you guys. There we go. One more high schooler. Excellent. So I'm just going to close that off. Share our results.
Awesome. Well, welcome. This is definitely an appropriate topic to talk to you guys about as you start to think about where you want to go next in your education path and your careers, essentially. And so first, I'll start off with what is STEM? So STEM is an acronym. It stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. STEM, what it does is that it makes a real difference in everyday life. And so what that means is that it's a field that creates and allows us to discover things, but most importantly, it helps us to help people essentially. And so I'll give you some information on what that looks like. But first of all, just know that a STEM career, whether it's STEM or non-STEM, so all types of careers, they do use STEM knowledge and STEM tools in every single field. So if, for example, mathematics, you might have to do something with accounting, for example. That's one way that you're using principles and concepts from math into a different career that might not essentially be a STEM related field. And so what we know is that over the last 10 years, STEM jobs have grown significantly, much more than non-STEM jobs. And so what we know is that the skills for STEM jobs are essentially vital for growth and for the employment of this country, and not just here, but all across the world. And so these things will continue to grow, of course. And as I mentioned previously, the jobs are expected to grow, and I'll show you some data on that. It's growing rather quickly. You could imagine even with the COVID-19 challenges that jobs in the healthcare field are also on high demand. And what we do know is that STEM workers earn at least 26% more than their non-STEM counterpart. And also there's some discrepancies generally about women in STEM. So, and I'll mention briefly on what that is. It's generally around the STEM pipeline. And so a lot of initiatives are around how can we support women in order for them to have some of those jobs that are readily available. So why is STEM important? Well, it's where innovation occurs. So if you, for example, love cars, and now they have all these different things around manufacturing and creating cars with technology, that's about innovation. If you look at a car today and compare it to one from 10 years ago, it's totally different. So we know it's about innovation, it's technology, it's new drug development. And so that is the core essentially of what STEM is. So what I'm showing you in the images here is a girl in Uganda with water. And so you see unclean versus clean water in the image right here. And then at the bottom is cyber attack and cybersecurity. And so STEM is centered at all of those things. So what STEM does, it helps us to solve local and global problems. For example, I mentioned COVID-19, so developing that vaccine, the multiple vaccines that we now have. But even before COVID-19, if we're thinking about headaches and things of that nature, the drug development process, you have to have STEM professionals who are part of this, solving these problems essentially. A lot of times you might hear about oil spills and pollution. Again, we have engineers who are helping to develop systems that can clean that water, just as you see with the unclean water in Uganda. So you can imagine the whole innovation that's going on and the creativity behind STEM. So STEM is very important for all of those things. As I mentioned, technology, I'm here and I'm talking to you guys. We couldn't do this 20 years ago. So just think about the changes that we've advanced in technology with smartphones, computers, again, cybersecurity, if there's data breaches, or if you're driving on the highway, you get an Amber Alert on your phone. We couldn't do any of those things 20 years ago. So STEM, as I mentioned, it's a growing market. There are many jobs that are out there that needs to be filled, but not enough people are studying STEM. So I mentioned previously, there's a pipeline issue with girls. So there's a lower representation of girls in STEM fields than there is men. And so a lot of work is addressing those types of how do we address those challenges to make sure we have representation for women as well. And what we also know is that fewer students who do plan to get degrees in STEM, they don't graduate with a STEM degree. So it's saying, well, you know, I'm going into college, I'm excited about STEM, but what's happening there? And so a lot of studies are addressing those things around engaging students with mentors and internship programs to make sure that there's a path for them that will ensure that they become successful. So it's not just setting you up to be in STEM, but how can you prosper beyond that? And as I mentioned, because of some of these challenges, employers are having difficulty around recruiting staff who are skilled to do these types of jobs. So I have a question for you, and I think the poll will open up, but you can get to see it here as well. And so I'll turn it to Alicia.
All right, guys, which of these is considered, oh, let me launch it, silly me. Which of these jobs is considered a STEM job? Statistician, and you can select more than one. Statistician, software developer, physician's assistant, dentist, cartographer, actuary, which I don't even know what that is, civil engineer, or all of the above. So go ahead and click your choices. Which of these jobs do you think are STEM? So you can choose one or three, or if you think all of the above is correct. While we're waiting for people to fill that in, Tishelle, do you know what an actuary job is?
I know that they deal with mathematical principles.
Well, look, we gave you an answer.
An actuarial scientist deals not only in mathematics, but in probabilities. Yep. One of the most common areas that you'll see an actuarial scientist is in the insurance company. Insurance companies hire actuarial scientists to help them determine what is the risk of this person getting into a car accident based on all these other factors. So they develop models to help predict, for example, this person is 10 times more likely than you to get into a car accident. So therefore their insurance premium will need to be higher, something like that.
Yeah, all right. Well, Tishelle, it looks like we have all correct answers. Yeah, I didn't realize that some of these things were STEM, so it was very interesting for me as well.
Yep. And that is the point, is really to just bring awareness of different types of careers that are out there in STEM. And so thank you for this poll. We'll go ahead into looking at some of these types of careers. Essentially what I'm showing you here, or what I'll show you, is a periodic table of STEM jobs. And so generally, often we study science. So we know STEM, the S is science. So this encompasses things like physics, chemistry, environmental science, geoscience, physics, astronomy, life sciences. T here would be technology. So we're dealing with careers in computer science. E would be engineering, and M would be mathematics. So what I love about this image, and it's from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, is that it shows this whole principle about how can we show you chemistry, but also highlight STEM jobs. So generally in chemistry, you'll have an element, and you can look at elements by how they're grouped. And so what they do here is group these jobs by different focus areas. So for example, within the science, chemistry, if we look at the pink shown here, we have jobs for someone who's a chemist that has a bachelor's degree. What it's showing you here, percentage, is the change in rate of this job over the next few years, and the salary. So the salary for a chemist is generally around $77,000. On the bottom, we have a chemistry teacher, someone who's post-secondary. So we're thinking like college professors. This person has a PhD. The change is about 6.3%. $80,000. And then you can also see that there are others who are in the chemistry field that has an associate degree. And that would be someone like a chemical technician shown here, changes of about 1.7 and roughly 48,000 K. So that's just giving you an idea of some fields for chemistry. We can also look at computer science, and it's very exciting, of course, generally to see where computer science lie. Look at someone with a bachelor's degree, 11.3%, $143,000. You know, so there's that high interest around technology integration. Even someone with over here, information systems, $98,000. And the goal here is not to show you about the money, but just to show you their differences. You can have a bachelor's degree in a particular area. In chemistry and physics, you can make the same amount of money as someone with an associate's degree. And so that all depends on the career path that the person chooses to pursue. I will highlight mathematics, and we see actuary right here on the bottom. So AC, that would be the element represented for an actuary. And so 20.1%, that is rather high. And that's 103,000. Where someone with a mathematician master's degree, again, so math is very, if you haven't seen it from this periodic table, then I don't know how else to convince you, but math is essential in STEM. And we can think of that because of this whole big data and everything being online now. So technology, so computer science as well as math is changing. So I love this image. I will share a lot of these resources with you at the end. So hopefully you too can go and look to see if there's anything that you see here that stands out for you. So these jobs I've mentioned previously, they are fast growing. What does this mean? So let's look for the next almost 10 years. So from 2019 to 2029, looking at all occupations, there's about 6 million jobs in the next 10 years. We look at STEM occupation, it's about 800,000. Non-STEM is about 5.2 million jobs that we're seeing. Now, if we look at the change, you might say, 800,000 isn't a lot, but how does it change? So the percent change for all occupations is only 3.7%. When we look at the STEM jobs, that is 8% change. So there's a vast increase in the number of STEM jobs relative to non-STEM jobs. So here, the non-STEM jobs, they're only 3.4%. So we're not really seeing any changes in those. And what you're seeing on the right is that percentage of the median salary. And as I mentioned earlier, there's about 26% difference in what someone with a STEM job gets versus someone with a non-STEM. So that's $87,000 here versus $38,000 per year. And the 10 fastest growing jobs, guess what? They are also in STEM. So I'm just showing you a few here, like a wind turbine service technician. The percent change is almost 61%, making 53,000. A nurse practitioner, a solar installer, statistician. Again, here goes math. Math is within the top 10. Physician assistants, medical and healthcare service managers. So they're all within that top 10. Every single job in the top 10 is a STEM related job. So keep that in mind. So let's revisit that question that we had earlier about the STEM jobs, like what you knew about STEM jobs. And now I want you to really tell me, what stood out to you? What have you seen from the periodic table or the fastest growing job that stood out to you?
You should see the poll right there, guys. Everybody who is participating, go ahead and click the job. Which one of those jobs stood out to you as fast growing or interesting or surprising? We've got the civil engineer, the statistician, the geologist, astronomer, computer information, microbiologist, or other, in case there was one, I couldn't list them all. For the person who put other, would you mind putting in the chat which one was interesting to you?
Yes, awesome.
So we have some people are joining us this evening, Shell, but they aren't participating in the poll. So of course we don't force anyone to do that, but we've got one astronomer. And then if you look in the chat window here, we've got one as a mechanical engineer. Those are the two jobs that stood out for some people.
Awesome, love it. And so the whole goal, as I mentioned, is always to bring awareness, right, of what's out there. Because for me, example, when I was younger, I had no idea. I thought to be in STEM, you had to be a doctor. And so it's bringing awareness that being a doctor is not the only way to become someone in STEM. So now I'm going to talk about, how can you prepare, for example, if you were going to become a mechanical engineer? What does that look like? Or what does it look like to prepare for any type of STEM job? So I walk you through some of those. And the first is addressing those misconceptions like what I had. And I'll talk about that a little bit more, but the first misconception is that career options are not limited to the area of STEM that you study. And what I mean by that is if you choose to study chemistry, it doesn't mean that your career will end up being a chemist. A lot of times chemists are involved in the drug development process, for example. Chemists learn about molecules and the structure of molecules and how they bind within the cell. And so they're using that to help us design drugs. If the drug doesn't bind properly, nothing's going to happen. So again, you'll find a lot of chemists involved in those types of areas of research. So it could be anything in STEM that you like, but you don't necessarily have to stay there. So what that means is STEM is interdisciplinary. You can take your skill set from one area of STEM and apply it to another area. And that is very, very, very critical. Employers love that. They love STEM professionals because they understand that technical expertise could be transferable. The other thing is that wealthy people are not the only one who can study STEM. So a lot of times it's like, okay, well, to get a STEM degree, it costs a lot of money. We know that. But there's so many scholarships out there. There are many training programs that can supplement or even cover your full tuition to go into a medical program, to go into a PhD program, nurse practitioner. There's so many that are available also for like minority students. So just be aware that there are resources that are available and training opportunities, even after you're in your profession, that can pay back, some through the government, for example, that can pay back for your education. Another thing is STEM professionals are not Albert Einstein. I recall being a student way back when, and every time I think about STEM, it's, oh, E equals MC squared, and this is what we're seeing. But you've seen even from the due influence that there's so many diverse people in STEM. So STEM is not about being Albert Einstein. So we will address that misconception right away. The other thing is that whole professional degree. You guys saw previously that someone with an associate's degree could still be in chemistry. You do not have to have a degree as a doctor, as a dentist, as someone with a PhD doing research. You can still be involved. There's so many levels of STEM, and we need every single person in that journey to help with the bigger picture. So what happens if everyone climbs to the top? There's no one at the bottom. You need that infrastructure to support. So for doctors, for example, a lot of them have physician assistants who are helping them, and they get very similar training, but they might not have been trained for the same length of time. They might have been trained in a particular specialty. So just keep that in mind. I mentioned earlier about girls. Girls are very interested in STEM and they do thrive in STEM. There are a lot of programs out there for women in STEM, Women in STEM Initiative. And so there are a lot of women out there that are championing and encouraging other girls and doing amazing things in STEM. STEM careers are not boring. I love what I do. If we don't love what we do, we wouldn't be doing it. And it's not about just being in the lab. A lot of times, again, people think about Albert Einstein. That is not what STEM is. As earlier you heard about an actuary, these are new types of jobs that are being created. So if you're someone who loves being a mathematician or you're an architecture, they're integrating those skill sets into STEM. So it's not boring, it's how you make it. And lastly, artificial intelligence or robotics, it will not wipe out the need for STEM jobs. And basically what that means is we have a lot of robots that are controlling these things. You know, we have Alexa and all these other stuff that we use today. But can Alexa do more than what you tell her to do? Right? So there's no thinking behind that. And guess what? Someone had to create Alexa. So there's a human mind behind developing these robots. So you still need people to be behind the scene, to strategize, to come up with the ideas, that innovation that I talked about earlier. That is what it's about. And so robots, they will not take over the STEM jobs. And secondly, after you've addressed your misconceptions, think about STEM being a road. It's not a destination. And what that means is the destination is more so where you're going. So are you becoming a manufacturer? Are you becoming an actuary? Are you becoming an engineer? And STEM is what will get you there. And if you think of it that way, you'll know that no two people have the same path. So we can both end up in the same place, but we start out differently. We might start at a different time in our life. We might start at a different school, whether it's a different level of schooling. We might have an internship program. There's so many things. It's just as if you're taking a journey to your grandparents' house, for example, and your cousins are coming from Connecticut and some are coming from Virginia, right? Sometimes the distance is longer for some people and you might meet roadblocks on that path. So there's sometimes challenges and things that will happen and others might not have that. But the point is that it's your journey and you should enjoy the one that's carved out for you, essentially. So here I'm just going to show you a few examples of STEM careers and roadmap and what this destination could look like. So in blue on this image, you're seeing the general education path that we would follow would be you graduate from high school. Some people do go ahead and have a specialty. So not interested in advancing beyond high school, but want to have a technical skill. And so they'll do a vocational training program. Some will go ahead further into an associate's degree, which is like a 2-year program, bachelor's degree, 4 years, master's generally 1 to 2 years after your bachelor's, and then that professional degree would be much longer. And so that's generally what you would take. But as you've seen earlier, some STEM jobs do not require an advanced education. Someone with a diploma and a specialty area can do just as well and thrive as someone with a bachelor's degree. The second is that there are many middle skill income jobs that only require 12 to 18 months of those technical vocational training program. And guess what? You've seen many of them, but you probably did not realize that's who they are. Your healthcare technicians, your medical assistants, your automotive technicians, the phlebotomists are the ones who are taking your blood when you go to the hospital. You know, mobile application developer, someone who's working on an aircraft. So these are all middle skill type jobs that are out there, but a lot of times we're not thinking that they're STEM, right? And so just keep that in mind. So what I'm showing you now is here's an example of a destination. So going in manufacturing, which is the whole idea around bringing raw materials to create a product. So think about your car, for example. Generally they have to, it's on a manufacturing plant and so on. So I'm just showing you someone with a high school diploma, might be a manufacturing operator, a diploma plus specialty could be production worker, associate's degree, a technician, bachelor's could be manufacturing engineering, and you work your way up the chain essentially. But what does this look like in terms of the career map? I'm going to show you for 2 people for each one of these. And really what you're seeing is that someone who's a manufacturing operator could have only a high school diploma. or they might have a high school diploma and an internship that they did. You can have someone with an associate's degree or a diploma that's a manufacturing technician or a production worker. So what that means is they have an associate's degree as a technician, or they might have a high school diploma, an automation certificate, a manufacturing certificate. And they could be either or of these positions. Again, it's just showing you different ways in which the destination could come together for two people. Third, manufacturing engineer. We're looking at someone with a bachelor's degree in computer science. They might have had a job shadowing experience, or it could be someone who just has a bachelor's degree in engineering, no extra anything done. At the top of the chain, we're looking at a supply chain manager. Person one has a bachelor's in math, master's in chemistry, and they did an internship. Person two has a bachelor's and went directly to a PhD program where they did research training. So this is just showing you some examples of what those things could look like. So in addition to all of that, I want to hit home that it takes persistence to do STEM. So here's an image of some like sports materials, essentially, helmet and basketball. So what I'm trying to get at is that STEM learning and mastery, it takes time and practice. If you're learning a sport, you basically have to practice. It doesn't happen overnight. So you learn the techniques, you learn about the sport. STEM is the same way. Then you do it. And then you can coach and teach others. And I always say, the way how you know if you know something is when you can teach it to someone else. If you can't, it means you have to go back and figure out, okay, where am I lacking? What do I need to learn? Where do I need to brush up my skills? And so my whole point for this is that technical skills are acquired and they're honed through practice, practice, practice. And you have to refine your skill. If you're going in for a surgery, you don't want to show up and it's like, oh, my surgeon doesn't know how to use a scalpel. They have to practice these things. So it takes time, which is why some training programs are much longer than others, right? You don't want to drive a car and it breaks down. You want to make sure it's tested at the manufacturing company. So it's those types of things, making sure you're paying attention to what's going on and so on. So my whole point is that STEM is not microwavable. It just doesn't happen over time. And it takes a lot of people to bring it together. So sometimes you will fail. It could be a test, it could be a project, but don't stop there. Practice, practice, practice. And one way of doing that, like while you're at home with all this COVID-19 stuff, is try some activities on your own. Try to see what you can learn. You can engage your family, you can teach them. Again, my philosophy is each one teaches one. If you understand it, you'll be able to teach it to someone else. So here are some links, and we'll supply these information for you. But STEM 2D at home at stem2d.org or Discovery Education, or you can just Google for some activities and find what's there. Use the resources in your house to create and do those activities, and you will have a lot of fun. Even if it means going outside in your yard when the weather gets warm, do it. It's so much fun. So the next thing I'll talk about is, what are some practical things you can actually do while you're on this road to ensure your success? So that road to being an engineer or an actuary or a medical doctor or a STEM educator, what can you do while you're there? Well, the first thing is build strong study habits. So this means if you're in a training program, making sure that you're taking the courses and the content for the program in the suggested sequence. If you can take them earlier, awesome. It means you'll get out of school much sooner and you can continue going on that path much sooner, essentially. So another thing is to develop strong study habits. Courses are challenging in STEM. They're not easy, which is why practice and consistency helps. So what this means is finding partners who you could share the content with. Like I said, you will understand that you know it when you can teach it to someone else. If you can't, find study groups, initiate your own study groups. And what I'm going to show you is, this is generally what it looks like studying on your own. And here's what it would look like working in groups. So find people that you can share the concepts with. Use your calendar. We have all of these smartphones and tablets that you can do everything, all of these apps. So keep track of when your assignments are due and so on, so that you stay on top of your game. and make sure you get enough sleep. And I say that because we don't want to end up like this, right? It says, I'm a little stressed right now. Just turn around and leave quietly and no one will get hurt.
So
We definitely don't want to end up there.
Definitely not.
Nope.
We actually have a seminar and an ebook and a webinar already on our website about time management and study skills and that kind of thing. So if you guys are looking for more information, it's all recorded already. It's not live. You can watch it at any time. You can fast forward when I make stupid jokes and then watch the parts that you want. So just go to thedoinfluence.com and we'll put it right there in the chat for you.
Yep. And it will definitely help you not to become stressed. So take advantage of those resources for sure. The second tip that I have for you is survey how your interests meets the world's needs. So I told you earlier about the whole social impact around STEM with water quality and oil spills. So do you have any of those interests? Is there an environmental issue that you like to solve? Do you like working with people, with animals, with to address things about the planet? So start surveying what your interests are and then how they could align with STEM. So as I mentioned previously, a career in STEM, it's all about creativity and problem solving. So you want to find out where you meet in that space. Don't focus on the content of STEM, but how you could actually apply that and master it to something that you love. Again, assessing what are your needs and what are your interests. So some questions you can ask are things like, is there a problem in the world that I'd like to learn more about? Or would I even like to solve that problem? What am I creative at? Do I like art, design? Do I like building things? Do I like giving people advice? What about writing? Can I integrate all of those things into a career? What is my passion? What can I see for myself? What can I see myself doing without getting paid? That is so critical because whatever it is, it means it's the thing that you're most passionate about because you're not looking to get money for it. As I mentioned, am I interested in helping people, animal, or the planet? What skills do I have that I can use in my work? So it's asking and taking inventory of those types of questions and then keeping in mind that STEM jobs require those types of skills that are hard and soft. So critical thinking, taking the content that you've learned, how do you take that analytical skills and apply it to creating and solving problems? Communication, project management, teamwork. Do you like working in teams? And so on. What type of leadership skills do you have? And so one way to do that, again, I will give you these resources at the end, is to explore those careers in STEM. So there are many platforms. We have technology today that helps us with these things. So career quizzes. BuzzFeed has a career quiz that says, which science should you major in? You can check that out. You can also check out Interact, which has a quiz that says, which STEM career is right for you? Or you can check out the quiz that was created by my team at FHI 360. How do you want to make a difference in the world? And really what that is saying is around, do you want to help solve a problem in the world around animals, planets, or people? And so it has those social impact questions, but it also thinks about when you're in the workforce. Meaning, do you like to travel? Do you like working in teams? Do you want to be working in technology? So it add a lot of the workforce component to the quiz. You get 7 results, like top 7 out of 40 careers. And it only takes about 2.5 minutes. So it's a really quick quiz that you can take, save your answers at the end, and then you can start exploring those careers because it will bring to light, actuary is one of them that's part of that. So it'll bring to light a lot of different types of careers that are available there. And so as we move forward, you kind of heard me talk a little bit about internship and job shadowing. So I would love if you can go ahead in the chat and use these, essentially give me a thumbs up. So what I want to know is what you know about internship program. So if you're interested in hearing more about internship program, we're gonna go ahead and do this. So thumbs up, yes, I know what an internship program is, or I have completed one before. You're gonna give a heart if you're interested in doing an internship program, but you don't know about it. And you're gonna give me that, oh wow, what is that? I have no idea what an internship is. So if you can go ahead and put that in the chat, that would be great.
Well, I have to give you a heart because I had a wonderful internship. If you guys are looking for where to put the hearts and the thumbs up, if you go to the reactions at the very bottom of your screen, you should be able to see the reactions there. Click on that and you can get some emojis and such. So Jeffrey gave a heart, so he probably participated in or knows what an internship is. But that looks like the only person who participated so far.
Yeah, so the heart would be that he's interested. Yep, but he doesn't know where to start. Awesome, Jeffrey. So I'm happy.
Oh, well, I gave you the wrong thing. All right, I'm going back. Here I go. There we go. Thumbs up, because I had a really good experience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I will provide internship on that, Jeffrey. So that's what this next section is really engaging with STEM outside of the classroom. You see some images here. These are like forensic science activities that I created with middle school students, and then an internship program with some undergraduate students. So really what it is, exploring those activities that will help expose you to STEM, like math clubs, science fairs, science Olympiads, engaging with Girl Scouts, for example, National Society for Black Engineers. There are many organizations that have these types of engagement activities, and also looking at vocational training programs to see what they have. Volunteer for anything related to STEM. I tutored math, and I saw it as a way to help review for exams that were upcoming. So take advantage of engaging in like summer camps and tutoring students so you can refresh for your exams, but also because you want to do it. And then explore summer internship programs or job opportunities. These are real world experience. You get to meet professionals in the field. These are at places like hospitals, universities, technology companies, the government, and so on. And so I'll provide more information here about those internships and summer opportunities. And really you want to be like Alicia and these girls and other students in this image, very happy to be like, yes, I've done it. This was awesome. I want to explore more internship opportunities. And really it's a chance for you to get familiar with the area of STEM that you're interested in. They're typically 6 to 10 weeks, often have cohorts of students within the same program, and you get training on like content, you get seminars, meetings, professionals, and so on. They're mostly paid and include housing. So if, again, I told you earlier, STEM is not for only the people who are wealthy. So there are ways around it to get involved with STEM. So you're learning the on-the-job training skills, you get feedback, you can get help with your application for graduate school, for medical school. If you're looking to go directly into a job, you can get help with all of those things. And you make connections, so you're building those networks. And so what I would say is review the links that I will provide. Start early, especially for internships in the summer. You want to make sure that you're looking as early as January or maybe even earlier. Be bold, go after the opportunities that you want. Do not shortchange yourself. And then learn about the place that you're trying to go to so that it comes off in your application. And so what I'll show you is that here's some examples of summer internship programs. This is one in Florida, at a Florida high school that works with the Scripps Research Center. And so, yeah, engage in high school students. There's with the Department of Defense. So there are federal opportunities as well, looking for students all across STEM fields. There's some programs that are for minority students, so around diversity, equity, and access to STEM, and some that are specific for girls as well. So this is the Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minorities, so it's called LSM. They're generally at these university campuses. And then you also have programs like summer programs for future doctors. So it all depends on what you're looking for. And I will provide all of these resources for you at the end so you can start seeing what is out there. And as a reminder, most of them are paid. I did many internships and they were amazing. They got me to where I am today. Third tip I would say is talk to others and ask questions. So connecting with those STEM professionals, even if it's the ones that you've met at your internship experience, but also those who are outside of that. So college students, educators, mentors, family, friends, reach out on LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn profile, make sure you reach out. You can conduct informational interviews. Those are 30 minutes Q&A session. Use Zoom, use Teams, use Google Hangout. just ask questions. Like I am here in this image, it says I am a biologist, ask me anything. We're often excited to share our stories, so just reach out. So again, asking for help. Someone could help you in bring information about financial aid. They can talk about training programs. They can help you build your network. They can help with your college application process. And lastly, attend panel discussions and seminars. So what I'm showing you here is a bunch of hashtags around STEM. So explore Instagram and Facebook and Twitter to see what the conversations are about. And you will be surprised. You'll find some talks that are happening. For example, Pi Day, which is March 14th, based on the number 3.14, is coming up. So I'm sure if you start, maybe not now, but maybe next week, looking at Pi Day, P-I-D-A-Y, hashtag P-I-D-A-Y, you'll see stuff. So there are probably panels and stuff that are coming up about Pi Day. So you want to start doing that. And that's one way to build your network and your connections. And so the last tip I will leave with you is to be yourself. So we have these sad faces and a very happy face. So being yourself is always that happy person. So what does that mean? Accepting yourself for who you are. Do you like solving a problem? Or is it about making money? You can make all the money you want, but you might not be happy. Or you can make a lot of money and still be extremely happy, but it could be making money and you're helping people. So it's all about what are you passionate about, and knowing that it's okay to change your career field at any time. As I showed you earlier, STEM is that road, is not the destination. It helps you to get to the destination. So it's okay to change your career path. It's all about your passion. And really, you're not living for other people's dreams. You're living for your own. And if you don't live for your own, you'll end up unhappy. But if you're living for your own, it's okay to be alone all by yourself, as long as you're happy doing what you're doing and supporting what you want to do. So I'm going to show you now what my road trip has been, and then I'll just give you the resources. So this is my road trip, has been my happy place. I would not say it was not easy. It took persistence. Like I said, some ups, some downs. The road was not straight. It's never straight. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but that is a part of the journey, and it's what gets you to where you want to go. And so I've done my high school degree. I have my bachelor's in chemistry with a math minor. I did a summer internship. I loved it. That is what allowed me to kind of switch from chemistry into pharmacology. Did my PhD in pharmacology, and I love education. So then I went on to explore teaching and pedagogy and things of that nature, and then taught for quite a while, and then went to the federal government to learn about how does the federal government fund education programs across the country and evaluate those programs. And now I get to be a STEM educational coach. So I get to coach employees at different companies with things around STEM, how to engage children and youth in STEM and provide my content expertise in such a way that's amazing. So as I said, it's my very happy place. And so my journey is very non-traditional. Most STEM educators have not done a lot of the stuff that I've done, but it was all grounded in my passion. I knew what I wanted to do, and it was to help people to learn about STEM careers, which is what I'm doing here today. And so everything I do is grounded in that. And so here's my information. I'm STEM 2D coach at FHI 360. This is a nonprofit based out of North Carolina, but we have an office in the Washington, D.C. area. So I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. My email is tgreen@fhi360.org. This is me hanging out at an educational research conference in New York. So I grew up in New York City, and it was just happy and awesome to be back at home with my dad and everyone, and hanging out with educators and knowing that I knew the city and loved it, and they were exploring it for the first time. So these were educators from all across the world. And so it was a chance for me to just go home and hang out while attending a conference. And these are the resources that I will share, or the team at the Do Influence will share with you at the end. And so I will open for questions.
Thank you so much, Tishelle. So appreciate you sharing that information with us. If you'll go back a slide for just a second,
Yep.
You guys, I wanted you to be able to see there are so many resources out there. Tashelle just was able to give you a few. We will email these out to you probably next week with a link to the webinar on our website. So you'll be able to see that as well as some other things. So now it's your turn. What questions do you have for Tashelle? Anything regarding STEM, the careers, the best paths, you know, what kind of classes do you want to take? Anything that you want to ask her about STEM. You can either unmute yourself and turn on your camera and say hello. We'd love to see your smiley face, or you feel free to type it into the chat. I'm happy to read that for you. While you're thinking, I have a question. So Tashelle, tell me why there is a need or a focus to get more women in STEM.
So there's data that shows the matriculation of girls from high school into college is much lower. And it has a lot to do with like social cues that says women are not supposed to be in STEM. Like we're supposed to be in the house, for example, cooking. Yeah. So it's a lot of the things that society tells us essentially that women are supposed to be doing. And so oftentimes because of that, we might not have the mentors to encourage us to go into those types of fields.
Okay.
Right? And so even at home, parents might not be aware of what a STEM career is because they didn't go down that path as well. They might not have a role model in that space to show them that you can do it. So it's a lot of those issues that are happening on that, essentially under the surface, and it's manifested where women are like, okay, well, I can't do it. And there are also things around math. So challenging math that says males are better in math than women are, but we know it's not true. We all start on the same level, but it's just dealing with a lot of those other challenges essentially. And so because of that, a lot of girls are going through what is known as the leaky pipeline. So we're losing a lot of them in high school essentially. So they're not transitioning into that college path. And because of that, it's a domino effect, and it's much higher for students of color, essentially. So although you see it high for women, it's even more detrimental for those of color.
That's a shame.
Which is why I kept saying, you know, it's not about Albert Einstein. So many other STEM professionals out there, and women are doing amazing with the work that they're doing. And so you've seen they've highlighted women in like movies and like that to bring awareness of STEM professionals in other areas. So it's addressing those types of things.
Thank you for explaining. That makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize a lot of what you shared in your presentation. So what about you guys who are watching, listening? What questions do you have for Tashelle? I got the chat open here for you. If you want to undo your camera and speak up, we're ready to listen.
So I know that you mentioned you were a biology professor. What were some skills that you needed? And also I'm curious to like what the experience was like. And another thing, like how related is biology to microbiology? Because I'm interested in microbiology. So
great question.
First off, microbiology is a subgroup of biology. So you can be like an environmental biologist, you could be a geneticist. So that's studying like genes and how genes are regulated or how we have the traits in genes. So, you know, microbiology is about bacteria and things of that nature. So they're all within biology. So you'd study biology as a student, but you can have a focus in microbiology, or you can have a focus in genetics, or a focus in pre-medicine. So students choose biology and then kind of look to see where their focus is essentially, or where their interest lies. And so to elevate in that space, you really want to think about internships. So there are internships like within microbiology that will separate you from a regular biology student. So that's how you kind of get the differentiation. And there are graduate programs that are focused on those areas as well. So it will say, here's a training program in biology, but there are all these like 10 different focus areas of biology. So immunology is another one, you know, how we respond to an infection like COVID-19. So those types of, you know, things like that. So with teaching, it was awesome. I love teaching. I was trained in the lab as a scientist, so making drugs for the good, of course. So I was trained in that space, but I love working with students, and I wanted to help them to figure out how they can get to that path. So I took a different path than most educators do, and that was I did a training program that taught me about education. What is the structure of education in the US? How do we address some of those challenges for students like girls in the classroom? How do we integrate interactive learning, kind of like what we've done a little bit of here, asking those questions and embedding it to make sure it focuses on the content that I've presented. So not being over the head, essentially. And the reason why I got into it is because in undergrad, I did not do well in biology. I love chemistry, but biology, my professor just lectured. So I wanted to know, how can I help students who might have the same learning skills that I do, but we're not good at memorizing information. And so for me, it meant going and teaching them, you can critically think, because really it's about solving problems. I'm good at that. I'm not good at memorizing. So I developed my classes around those types of strategies to engage students with teaching assistants, with case studies, for example, around drugs. I talk about drugs a lot, but let's say you go to the doctor and you get an IV. What does it mean if the concentration is too high or too low? So I engage students in those types of things, like those thought patterns, because that's a real world problem. And what can happen after that? So it was building on those skill sets. I will admit, everyone thought that I was very aggressive because my classes were generally about 200 students. So I had lecture classes, so a lot of students, but I loved it. I mean, it was amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was just a different way of teaching. And so now with the COVID-19 challenges, a lot of the stuff that I was doing is what they're doing now. So I was already ahead of the game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was like, hey, you should have done what I was doing back then. So not for everyone, of course, but you know, for those people who are often like, they don't want to do that, because a lot of professors like to lecture, but I'm not one of them. I like to engage my students. So I walked around the classroom a lot. I knew my students' names. I mean, within the 200 plus students, they're like, how do you know that? It's because they had to do homework, and I had to look at the homework, and I had to give feedback, even though it was so many of them, you know, so showing them that they were important. And it made a big difference for a lot of my students. And they're doing amazing things today. And I'm just happy, which is why I said it's my happy place, right? Yep. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, that's excellent. Melody, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that did perfectly. Thank you.
Wonderful. Jeffrey, it looks like you have a question. You're still on mute, but go ahead and there you go.
Hi. I just like want to know, like, what are, in your opinion, what are like the big major key factors are in like choosing a specific path, like down in like engineering or like any career in STEM? Like, I'm very interested in engineering. I have a couple of interests in careers in engineering, but I don't know how to narrow it down to like one single like career.
And that's always a challenge. And I know for me, the way I did it was I made a list of what do I like in terms of like careers, what I don't like. And it made me eliminate the things that I didn't like, you know? So you might start with a list of 20 and be like, okay, well, I really like this one, but I don't like it as much. So you're ranking them, right? You can start by ranking them and see who falls within like the top 5. And then you can start pursuing those. But as I mentioned before, it's you can change careers at any time. So if you're within engineering, in that subgroup of engineering, it's okay if you choose like an engineering, mechanical engineer right now, but you can always move on to another focus of engineering. Or you can move out of engineering and do something totally different. So it's keeping that in mind, that you'll do what you want at this present time. Like, what is your heart saying to do? What is the top? And you will know, it will tug at your heart, but it's the one thing that you will not be able to get out of your mind. And it will come around in circles always until you explore that thing. So that's what I would advise you to do, is get that list, see what your top opportunities are, and then kind of try to wind down from there. So what are some areas that you're thinking, Jeffrey?
Some were like, well, I'm kind of like want to work in like groups or maybe like hands-on stuff. So I was like thinking maybe like mechanical engineering or aerospace, civil,
Mhm.
Wow.
stuff like that.
Yes, I would also advise you to think about those internship opportunities. So if you have the time, definitely, because NASA has internships, you can look there too, and it will help you to see, well, maybe I don't like it. Well, I love it a lot more than I thought. So it's exploring those things as well. So once you have that list, look, go back to these resources essentially, and you'll see where you might be able to match. It could be in your community where you live or anywhere across the country. You can find internships. So I would definitely suggest that you explore internships as well. What year are you in college currently or?
No, I'm a junior.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, you can still do internships opportunities. Go ahead, Melody. Were you going to ask something?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what does it look like now with, sorry, that's background noise. But what does it look like now with the pandemic and just like for STEM occupations that solely focus on like hands-on like work?
Yeah, so that's that whole innovation component that I mentioned. So we've been very creative with the way that we restructure internships, because definitely you need the technical skills and you need that. So for example, I help to have programs implemented on the ground for students. So I will connect with, say, an educator and help them to figure out how can you deliver the materials to them and present it in a way that they can still do it on their own, right? So it's a lot of that individualized learning, but then you're coming together to work together in Zoom essentially. So there's still that's happening. So it's finding out how to be creative with education essentially. So sometimes it might be having a video of a plant. If you were to be at the site for an internship, you might not have that. So it might be more so, you see how gaming systems are and you could play the game and they're creating those sorts of things in that virtual space for it to be as realistic as possible to get the experience. And so, as I mentioned, some companies will provide the resources if you need the hands-on training. They'll still do the interview. As I mentioned earlier, those informational interviews, you can still do those like we're doing right now. So they can still engage you in a lot of those things. So everyone's learning what it's like in this space for sure. But it's the opportunity to be creative in many ways and to take it and use it moving forward.
And it's not going to be like this forever. We'll get back to a little bit of normalcy as we continue. So you'll be able to have more of those hands-on activities as we get more people vaccinated and the world figures out how to live this way. So it won't be like this forever.
Yep. And that's why I encourage, like having your parents work alongside what you're doing. That's one way for you to teach them, but also for you and them to learn the whole process of what it is, which is why I mentioned earlier that personalized learning, but having someone else, because you still need to develop those team building skills and you can take advantage of who's in your house if you do have that opportunity. Or, you might have some friends, I'm not sure, but just being mindful of what your parents might say and so on. So yeah, so there are creative ways around it and we are working with what we have. But as Alicia said, we're not going to be there forever.
Any more questions, guys? Well,
oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, please. Melody, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, like, because I'm pretty sure many people ask you, but what were many like ups like and downs or many problems along the way of like being focusing on STEM?
Yeah, for me, it was the challenge with biology. So I mentioned earlier that I was not good at biology. So I sort of did everything in chemistry and had to figure out how to get over that hurdle. So one of the things I did was I taught myself biology.
Wow.
Tough. It was not easy, but that is where I learned to reach out to other students and form those study groups that I mentioned earlier, because I didn't know if what I was learning was correct. So I had to find a way for somebody to kind of reiterate, oh yeah, you're on the right track. No, you might want to go back and do this. So all of those study groups came from the fact that I had to teach myself outside of classes, what biology was. And I love biology today. And I probably think that's the reason why, just knowing it was my biggest challenge in STEM. But I also had issues around my PhD project not working. It did not work for almost a year. And so I was ready to quit the program. It's frustrating when something you've been working on and the path you've chosen seem like it's not going anywhere. So, but thankfully I reached out for help. And that's why I said asking questions is so important. It was a simple thing why my project did not work. And when I found out, it drove me crazy. It was essentially, there's an assay, which they use today for COVID-19, it's called an ELISA assay. So it measures protein levels. And you have to be so meticulous with like cleaning the apparatus essentially that collects the sample. If it's not cleaned properly, it will give you false results. And that's what I was having. So it meant all I had to do was wash it like with a wash solution for about 5 more minutes. It was as simple as that. But I only found out when I asked someone like, why isn't my stuff working? And you just work all the time, So with her giving me that, she was like, maybe you need to, how long are you washing? And so on. And that solved the problem. But it drove me up a wall knowing that my project wasn't working. But once it did work, it took off completely. So, like I said, there are going to be hurdles. Another one was I wasn't sure what I wanted to do after I completed my PhD, because all my classmates went on to work for the pharmaceutical companies. And here I was trying to help students. And they're like, why do you want to do that? We don't do that. Like that's the social understanding generally, but that's not true. That's a misconception. You go after your passion. And so I went after my passion, and it caused me a lot of ups and downs, but it's what I love, and it's my destination essentially, and it's my career path, and I love it. And I wouldn't trade it because I got to learn so much from it. And that's why I said persistence is key. And you guys will learn so much. It will strengthen you. It will make you become who you are and a better person, essentially. And I'm happy to connect with you. You can email me. If you do want to set up like an informational interview, I'm happy to do one of that with you. And yeah, just talk about, and you too as well, Jeffrey, because this is what I do essentially, try to help you map out what that might look like for you. So you guys can reach out.
If you're interested in getting her email in the invitation to the webinar, there's an email that said if you had questions, you can email directly there and we can connect you offline. So guys, thanks so much for coming to Shell. You are amazing, a fountain of information. Holy cow. We will send you an email next week that gives you the link to be able to see this and others. We do a webinar every month. We had one, like I said, we had one on time management and study skills, interviewing. So all different variety. Invite your friends. We are always glad to have lots of people join us. And thank you so much for coming. We hope you have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Bye.